Hello friends, myself Shriram Korde. We have seen up to now how do we write functions and then how do we call those functions from main. We also have seen how do we call functions from another functions, and obviously I am talking about our own user defined functions. So in this video now we will obviously write our own functions, but we will see how do you pass parameters to the function. We also will see how do you return values from the user defined functions. So let's get going. So here we can see that there is an empty file, and now I want to write a function, and let's say that I want to basically develop a very simple function which is going to do the sum of two numbers. Now if I want to do this simple function, then obviously I need to pass the parameters or the values that user will provide us. So let's first see how do you pass the parameters, and in that process we will also learn why we need to pass parameters to the function. So let us say that here I have defined two temporary variable, say x and y, and I am asking user to enter values for x and y. Okay, so I am asking user to enter the values for x and y. Obviously, I will do scanf here. Now, after I have done scanf, now what I want is I want this x and y to be sent to function. Now let's take a case where I have written a function. Now here I am going to make use of a forward declaration. I have told you in the previous video that there is a way to declare a function first and then we write it below main, then that is possible. So we will now use that technique. So let us say I have this function void, and let's say it's going to compute sum. So I'll call this function as func, and then I will put underscore, and then we will have this function. Okay, and here we will basically only going to declare the function. So this is like a signature of the function. This is called as signature, or essentially we are declaring the function. Now why do you need to declare this function is because here when you start providing the C file, then the C file is compiled from the top left. So here it will encounter hash include stdio.h, then it will basically get this declaration of func_sum. Why? Because this func_sum now I can easily write below the main. Otherwise, I have to write it above main. So to avoid that problem, you first forward declare it. Why? Because from this main I am going to call this function. Okay, and I am going to call this function func_sum. Okay. Now let us say if I would have done like this. So here what I have done is I have basically declared the function. If I would not have declared this function, then my job is basically to write, that means to implement this function here, that means above main, and then only I can call this function. If I don't do it like this, then there is a good chance that compiler may start giving errors, or it will start functioning not properly, or it will basically give error after we develop some more functions. For one or two functions it may work. So the way in which it should be done is you first either declare it, and this particular thing is called as forward declaration. Forward declaration. This is called as forward declaration, or you basically write it above main. So right now we are going to do this forward declaration, and here there are nothing is told here, it's only the function signature. So many people call this as a signature also. It's like a signature of a function. Now we have written main, and now from main we are going to call func sum. That means it should sum. Now what it should sum? Obviously I will provide this x and y values. Now the issue is, if I just think that these x and y values will be available to me, and I start using, say here, local variable z, and I do z is equal to x plus y. If I just do it, then it's going to give me error. That is very important. Why? Now the reason is because this x and y, these variables x and y are basically local to main. They are local to main function. That means this x and this y is not available in any of the functions that you basically are writing. That is very important. So now I have to make these x and y available to this function, which I have called it as func underscore sum. If you are finding it difficult to have such a big name, you can simply call it as sum. Okay, and then obviously we will change it here also. So let's say that the name of the function is simple sum. Now this x and y is not available, and that's why now we need to make this x and y available to sum. So the way in which you can do x and y available to sum is basically done using what it is called as parameter passing. Parameter passing. That means now I need to pass x and y to whom? To sum. Then only I can do something like this: z is equal to x plus y, and then I can basically say here result is, or some result is, and then I can basically write something, some code like this, say z. So that I can do. However, to happen, or to basically have such a situation, I need to have x and y available to some function. So how do I do that? And that's where we are going to rely now on something called as parameter passing. So now I need to pass parameters to whom? To basically to this function sum. So how do I pass that? So the way in which I am now going to pass it, I am going to send the value of x which user will enter, and I am going to send value of y which user will send. So this is called as parameter passing. Parameters passing. Here I am going to pass parameter, and this is called as parameter passing by value. This is called as by value. Why? Because we are actually sending the value of variable x and variable y. There is another technique that we will study in further videos. The way in which you can pass parameters, so there is another technique that we will study later. So now, since now the x and y needs to be passed to some function, that means now as a part of this signature, essentially the forward declaration, I need to tell what exactly I am passing. So I need to tell the data type of the parameter that I am passing. So here I am going to write int and int. You don't require to give the names of variable here. That is very important. Okay, it's this, why? Because it's a forward declaration, and that's why it is called as signature. Many people think that we need to give the names of variable. No, it's not needed. It's not needed. If you give, no issues, but it's not needed. What is needed is only data type. So that's why here the data type of x is provided, data type of y is provided. The same thing we will do here. Now let us say that I will have int a and then int b, and I am purposefully giving different names a and b. The reason is because many people otherwise will get confused. So by giving this name a and b, now these variables a and b essentially are local to a and b, essentially are local to sum. That means these a and b essentially are not available to me in main. The way in which this x and y is not available to me directly in sum. On the similar lines, whatever the I am using here a and b, they are not available to me in main. Okay, so they are only available in sum. So obviously I will not use x here now. I will use a and then I will use b. So in case I would have used, say here, if I would have used say x and y, is it wrong? No, it's not wrong, but the nomenclature is typically people prefer different name so that they don't get confused. Okay, so the point here is This is the data type. If I would have given here int sum a and sum b, absolutely no issues, you can give that, but it's not required. Why? Because as a part of signature, you basically require data type. Okay, so that's the important information that I am sharing. Now what will happen? So this x will be sent to this function. When the function gets called, that means from main the sum will be called, and it is going to pass x, it is going to pass y, and the value of x, that's why here it is written y value. So value of x and value of y will be copied. So x will be copied in a and b will be copied in y. So exactly what will happen is, here I will write. So here I will just put it. So a basically will be copied, and that means a will have the value of x and b will have value of y. That means it will get copied. So whatever I am entering by after doing scanf, so that particular value will be sent in a, it will be copied in a. Similarly, y value will be copied in b, and then you have the thing getting calculated, and the z will be answer, that means a plus b, and then you can print. So let's execute this code now, func2. So you will say it is asking me to enter values for x and y. So let us say that I enter values for x is 41 and say y is 10. So you will see the result is 51. So that is what I am trying to tell you. So x was collected in obviously by doing scanf, x and y. So you send these x and y values. They are collected in a and b, and then z got basically became 51, and then it printed, and then from here, as you know, the result after printing the result, then the curly bracket, then it came back, and then whatever was there in the main, basically it will execute. Currently we don't have any statement, so and essentially return 0, and then the code ended. So here we could have put some message here, say we can put here printf, and say I can say back to main. I can always write some message here. Okay, and let's execute it. So if I execute, so let's see that I will put here 20, and then let's say 80. So you will see result is 100. Obviously it printed the result, and then it printed the message back to main. That's the way typically it will happen. Now the issue is, if I want to once again do sum, let's say I have taken once again I have done scanf, and I basically want to do sum, then the problem is I will keep on printing here, which I am not interested. So what should I do? That means now I should be in a position to return the value from sum. That is very important. So for that, what should I do now? It should have a return type. It should have a return type. So instead of this void, because right now it is not returning anything, you see there is no return statement. So if you want to return something, obviously you require a return statement. So instead of printing the answer here, I could have basically returned from here. So what I can do, return, and then I can say return z. So if I do return z, then obviously it's going to create trouble. Why? Because now the z is having data type of integer I want to return, but here now I have told void. So let me first run this, and now what is happening, you see here it is basically giving the error, and it is showing some error issue. Okay, so obviously I will stop this. I don't want to continue like this because I know that this current code is wrong. Okay, so that means now I need to change it. So what should I change? I should change it to the data type, and that's why I told you the data type is very important. Okay, and now you will see error has come here. Declaration is incompatible. Okay, that means now the integer. So the important point I made to you is this a name was not required. Similarly, b name was not required. That means the name of variable is not required. Only data type is required, and that is the important thing. So here you will see I have basically returned z. Now I changed it to integer, and then here it is matching. So the signature is matching. Now what is happening? I am returning a value. So obviously sum is now returning something. So I should now collect it. So where should I collect? So obviously I will have to have another variable. So I will call this variable as a result, R for result. Okay. So let me just put it here, result variable. Okay. So now I will say R is equal to sum. That means now I got the value R. Now I can always print this. So instead of printing it here, I can just copy this line. I can paste it here, and I'll obviously make it R here. Okay. And now let's run this code. Okay. So now let us enter some value, say 20 and say 30. So you will see the result is 50. Result got printed in the main. So you will see result R. So if your result is 50 and then it printed back to main. Back to main was printed later. So back to main is unimportant right now. So the point here is this, whatever the value that you entered x and y. Say in our example the value was 20 and 30. So that is what we basically entered. Okay. So after you enter 20 and 30, this A became 20, B became 30, and then you will see it says A and B are local to sum. So that's what I told you earlier. So basically this is what it is showing. Okay. So Z is the local variable. Obviously, we have declared it within the some function, and then Z is equal to A plus B. And now I am returning Z. So the value of the Z is basically copied, or it was assigned to R, and that's why R got the answer as 50, whatever the answer, and then it printed, and basically we completed the code. Now on the similar lines, we could basically write another function. So let me just write another function, and I will call this function as say multiplication. Okay, so it's obviously forward declaration, and now I will basically copy this function and I will call this function as mul, which I just told you. Okay, and obviously it's going to do multiplication. So let's say here I will use a star. Now I have written R is equal to some parameters are passed, and I have told you this. Okay, so instead of now result, we could have said some answer or some value. We could say that. So let's copy this and we will paste it here. And instead of R now I will invoke mul function, multiplication. Okay, and here I will say multiply. Multiply value is and R. So obviously R will get overwritten. And now let's basically execute this. So let's enter the value. So I will enter say 40 and I will enter say 3. Okay. So now you can see this. Okay. So enter value is 40. So sum value is 43. Multiply is 40 into 3, that is 120. So that is correct. So that's the way typically you basically work with sending parameters, and that is what I called as parameter passing. So here basically we did parameter passing by value. So both the places we did parameter passing by value, and then we obtained the result. That means whatever the result is returned, it comes back to this line. That means it basically will assign it to the whatever the variable that you have given. So here it is R, and then you essentially can use that R, and you can print the answers, respective answers. So that's the way you typically pass the parameters as well as you return the parameters. I hope you understood the important things with respect to writing a function, developing your own functions, and returning the values also. Thank you.